Head of Delegation of the European Union in Jamaica, a co-sponsor of this August event, other members of the diplomatic community, our Honorable Audrey V. Sewell, Cabinet Secretary, Permanent Secretaries, Vice Admiral Antoinette Weems-Gorman, Chief of Defense Staff, the Jamaica Defense Force, Dr. Kevin Blake, Commissioner of Police, Jamaica Constabulary Force, leaders of public and private sector entities, members of the academic community, other specially invited guests, particularly our program presenters, members of the organizing committee, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all very well. Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the fourth staging of the security seminar, and I am deeply honored and humbled to have been asked to moderate this seminar. My name is Wayne Robertson, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Water, Environment, and Climate Change, and we are building this nation to become more resilient. More will be said about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth annual security seminar convenes at a pivotal moment for this blessed nation of ours. Jamaica achieved historic reductions in major crimes in 2025, reaching levels not seen before in over 3 decades, while at the same time confronting the massive challenge of post-disaster recovery from Category 5 Hurricane Melissa during a critical implementation phase of Vision 2030 Jamaica. These developments unfold against a backdrop of new and emerging national security threats, underscoring the need for greater policy coherence, institutional strengthening, and evidence-driven approaches to safeguard Jamaica's long-term security and national development goals. So the intersection of discourse on security, resilience, and sustainable development is the central focus of this year's event as we promote discussions on viable pathways towards attaining national development goals by highlighting several key drivers being undertaken by the government. The Sustainable Directorate 2025 explains that national security resilience reflects the country's capacity to absorb and recover from shocks to its security and stability. It is not a static state, but rather a dynamic process. It requires constant adaptation, learning, and improvement, and it's about building systems and societies that are not only strong, but also flexible and adaptable to unforeseen challenges. So, ladies and gentlemen, the seminar's theme is entitled Shaping National Security Outcomes from Vision to Action, Citizen Security, Institutional Resilience, and Peace is designed to articulate several national security imperatives of the government for the next 5 years, namely security disaster management, reconstruction, and the continuity of governance. Secondly, reducing violence through targeted social intervention investments. Thirdly, enhancing border protection and managing transnational threats. And fourthly and finally, reframing the 2013 National Security Policy for emerging realities. Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that I provided that context so we can understand why we're here this morning. By way of overview, I'll just summarize what we have here on the program. The next item will be our national anthem, and then we get into the formal proceedings with our Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Juliet Cuthbert will be followed by, after. The keynote address will be delivered by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and then we'll have working session 1, security preparedness and EU partnerships, from stress test to state community as the second presentation. Working session 2 will focus on violence prevention through integrated social intervention strategies. And then we will get into the second presentation of the afternoon, integrated border management systems. That will be followed by a coffee break, and then the final segment will be the panel discussion, and then we will have Q&A followed by the closing. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed to have in our presence the head of the public service, Honorable Audrey V. Sewell, our cabinet secretary. Could you just give her a big round of applause as she makes herself to the podium to give the welcome? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The protocols have been established, but permit me to acknowledge the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, Ministers of Government, members of the Diplomatic Corps, colleague permanent secretaries, other members of the public sector, members of the private sector, specially invited guests, all, good morning. It is my honor to welcome you to the Office of the Cabinet's, Office of the National Security Advisor's 4th Annual Security Seminar, convened under the theme, Shaping National Security Outcomes from Vision to Action, Citizen Security, Institutional Resilience, and Peace. This gathering underscores our shared commitment to strengthening Jamaica's national security architecture and ensuring that our policies remain responsive to the evolving needs of our society. This year's seminar is especially significant as Jamaica approaches a critical implementation phase in the Vision 2030 Jamaica timeline. Our deliberations today will highlight several outcomes to be prioritized over the next 5 years, ensuring that our work remains aligned with the wider goals of sustainable development, institutional resilience, and citizen security. The priorities presented today reaffirm that security is multidimensional, requiring not only robust operational capabilities, but also strong systems, effective governance, and resilient institutions. The recent historic 43% reduction in murders for 2025 provides encouragement but it also reinforces the need for sustained effort. And I believe we should pause here to clap, to give a round of applause to the leadership in this country in terms of the security of our nation. And you all know yourselves, I won't single out anybody, but it was not just on the battlefield. It started with policies, programs, meetings after meetings, discussions, implementation and execution. Simultaneously, the impact of Category 5 Hurricane Melissa has tested the resilience of our systems and communities. Yet, even in the face of disruption, there is strong commitment at all levels across government to advancing the goals of the security of the country. And there is no doubt whatsoever that together we will build back better. Colleagues, today's seminar is an invitation to deepen our shared understanding of national security priorities and to reaffirm our collective responsibility in achieving them. It calls for renewed dedication to ensuring that every action taken contributes to the broader vision of peace and prosperity for all Jamaicans. As we proceed with today's program, I encourage each of us to engage fully, to exchange insights openly, and to identify opportunities for collaboration. It is only through joint-up collaborative efforts that we will make it. Let us ensure that the discussions held here translate into concrete, measurable improvements in how we plan, operate, and deliver our mandate. Together, we have the capacity to build a Jamaica that is safer, more resilient, secure, and peaceful. Let us all leave here today with one conviction: Jamaica's best days are ahead. And so I urge you to continue to move forward with unwavering purpose and unity of action and vision. Again, welcome and do have a profitable day. Thank you.
Give her a bigger round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, our Cabinet Secretary. Just to summarize some of the takeaways, security is multidimensional. It's not just a one-dimensional thing. You require partnerships, collaborations, alliances. We need stronger systems. Robust governance arrangement must be in place. We need to have joined-up government. That's JUG, J-U-G. Build a Jamaica that is more resilient, secure, and peaceful for all of us as citizens. Those are the major takeaways. We all want to remain here, as Vision 2030 says. Place of choice to live, work, raise families, and I know many of us have added, and to retire. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I now call upon Honorable Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, Member of Parliament and Minister of State, Minister of National Security and Peace. Give her a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, other ministers of government and senators, cabinet secretary, permanent secretaries, security chiefs, and members of the National Security Council, representatives of the diplomatic corps and international organizations, representatives of public and private sector bodies and academia, other distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. Your presence here today is a powerful testament to the shared commitment and resolve that unite us in one common purpose: to make Jamaica better and a safer place for all people. We gather not merely as policymakers or practitioners, but as custodians of Jamaica's future, entrusted with shaping the conditions in which our citizens can live without fear, pursue opportunities and confidence, and pass on to the next generation a nation stronger and better than the one we inherited. Our national vision statement, Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business, has guided successive administrations. And today, however, I deliberately add a fifth pillar: and to retire in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, a nation is not truly secure unless its citizens can look forward to their later years with dignity, safety, and confidence. The theme of this year's seminar, Shaping the National Security Outcomes from Vision to Action, Citizens and Security, Institutional Resilience and Peace, is therefore not aspirational rhetoric. It is a direct expression of national priority. It reflects the imperatives that this administration will pursue over the next 5 years as we continue to march towards the Vision 2030 Jamaica's milestone. This fourth annual security seminar takes place at a critical juncture in our national journey. In 2025, Jamaica recorded its historic decline in violent crime, 674 murders, the lowest in 31 years. Yes, that requires a round of applause. A 41% reduction compared to 2024, shootings down 32%, and overall major reduction by 17%. That momentum continued in 2026. In January alone, Jamaica recorded 38 murders, representing 49% reduction compared to the same period last year. This is the lowest monthly figure since structured, disaggregated data collected on crime began within the Jamaican Constabulary Force in 2001. Ladies and gentlemen, these results are not coincidence or chance. They are the product of deliberate policy decisions, sustained investments, and coordinated national effort. They demonstrate that a multi-pronged evidence-based strategy works. But they also carry a clear warning. Progress is not permission by complacency. Crime reduction must be protected, deepened, and sustained. The timing of this seminar is also deeply significant for another reason. It follows the passage of Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, an unprecedented natural disaster that has left us with an estimated USD 8 billion reconstruction challenge. This moment compels us to broaden our understanding of national security. Hurricane Melissa revealed the resilience of our people, the dedication of our first responders, and the strength of our recovery mechanism. But it also reinforced a fundamental truth. National security is not only shaped by the safety of our citizens, but by the strength of our institutions, the resilience of our economy, and the quality of our partnerships, locally, regionally, and internationally. This is the path to sustained peace. This is a path to a stronger Jamaica for all Jamaicans. The goals of National Development Plan are reinforced by Plan Secure Jamaica under Phase 1 of the Citizen Security Plan, CSP. Jamaica has made considerably and commendable progress from Cabinet's approval in the CSP in 2020 to the establishment of the Citizens Security Secretariat, the strengthening of monitoring and evaluation systems and effective implementation, the institutional architecture is now firmly in place. At the highest level, the creation of the Citizen Security Business Group, chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister, has ensured a whole-of-government approach to implementation and problem-solving. Phase 2 of the security plan now builds on this strong foundation. Its focus will be on program sustainability and expanded emphasis on peace building and non-violence, deeper coordinated partnerships, enhanced communication and citizens' engagement, and greater innovation and creativity in our delivery. We will extend interventions beyond the Zozo communities to disaster-affected areas and other volatile communities, including those where gains have been eroded with the passage of Hurricane Melissa, complementing these efforts in the ministry's Live Good anti-violence campaign, which directly addresses harmful cultural norms and continues to promote positive values across our communities. Ladies and gentlemen, citizen security is not merely about suppressing crime. It is about building resilience. It's about restoring trust and strengthening families. When people feel supported, when they feel heard and invested in, violence loses its appeal. Accordingly, the government has scaled up its comprehensive approach to addressing the root cause of crime and violence, and we will continue to do so through targeted social intervention investments. On the plan Secure Jamaica, this government has made the largest investment in national security in Jamaica's history. These investments have yielded results and will continue to do so. However, in the post-Hurricane Melissa context, institutional resilience must now mean stronger, coordinated among first responders and community networks, hardened infrastructure for communication, for health, for logistics and emergency services, and continuity of citizen security service during crisis. This is an all-hazard security framework which is essential to national stability. Disaster risk management is no longer peripheral. It is essential to our national security. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move along the path of sustaining peace, we must recognize that peace is more than the absence of crime. It is a condition in which trust in institutions grow, violence is no longer normalized, and opportunities is widely shared. Peace also requires a cultural shift. We must move beyond viewing peace solely as a policing outcome and begin to understand it as a community experience. And that is why the assignment of a peace portfolio to the Ministry of National Security is both timely and transformative. For years, we have said that national security is everybody's business, and today we affirm that peace is also everybody's business. It must be co-produced by citizens and institutions alike, aligned with our shared vision of Jamaica as a place of choice to live, work, raise families, do business, and retire. As I close, let me remind us that we stand at a defining moment in Jamaica's history. We have seen what is possible when vision is matched with action, when crime is reduced to historic lows, when resilience carries us through a disaster like Hurricane Melissa, and when communities rise to shape their own future. The journey, however, does not end here. Crime reduction, reconstruction, and institutional resilience are not endpoints. They are stepping stones towards a Jamaica that is secure, cohesive, just, and peaceful. Our task is now to protect our gains, deepen them, and ensure that the dividends of peace are experienced by every single Jamaican. Thank you, and good morning.
Thank you, Minister Cuthbert Flynn, and many takeaways here. Make Jamaica a place where Jamaicans can live without fear. A nation is not truly safe unless people feel that in their later years they will live in peace. She also quoted data in terms of the numbers, record levels now in terms of reductions in crime, cited January, 38 murders, 49% reduction, year-to-date comparison. Phase 2 of the security plan includes, among other things, program sustainability, deeper partnerships, and the need to ensure there is robust citizen engagement among, there are others. Peace is more than the absence of crime. It's much more than that. Peace requires a cultural shift, and peace is everybody's business. Well said, Minister. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be remiss of me at this August event to not highlight the hard work of a lot of stakeholders, and you get into problems when you start calling names. Of course, the reduction in crime is not by chance. It's based on the leadership, the transformational leadership, I should add, strong and visionary leadership of the Prime Minister himself, who has led from the front. The JCF, the Police Commissioner, Dr. Blake, hardworking men and women of the JCF, the JDF, we have Chief of Staff and our hard-working team, technocrats in the ministry, the permanent secretaries from the respective ministry, National Security Council, Cabinet Secretary as head of the public service. There are many stakeholders involved, and there are other key ministries, departments, and agencies who have to promulgate legislation, for example, to make sure that crime is reduced. The Bail Act, Firearms Act, and many others. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a partnership, and we as Jamaicans, we as stakeholders here in our blessed country, we are very, very thankful to everyone who has certainly contributed to this reduction in crime. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed honored to have in our midst Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister, our hard-working Prime Minister. I recall last year he said it was his third time addressing this event, and this would be his fourth. So every year he has been here, and that says something. Despite his busy schedule, he's here. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hand together for our hard-working, our transformational leader, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Good morning, Excellencies. It's a very dignified audience, and welcome to our visitors. Jamaica takes national security very seriously. When most Jamaicans hear the term national security, they immediately think crime and violence. And rightfully so. Crime and violence has been our number one threat to life, value, and values. This administration has taken a more deliberate, strategic, and I dare say more sophisticated approach to national security. We established the Office of the National Security Advisor, instituted the National Security Council as a committee of cabinet, instituted various laws relative to security generally. We ensure that all law enforcement and security forces are members of the Council. But most importantly, the Council covers every subject. Yes, because by definition, national security is everything that makes the nation insecure, every threat. The NSC is data-driven and intelligent, in the sense that the organization is a learning entity. And this is why we have now, for the fourth time, hosted this seminar. We want to learn from experts, but we also want to share with experts what we have learned. As an intelligent entity, we want to impact how Jamaicans see their security. We want to impact how they act. And we also want to be thought leaders on security regionally and globally. This fourth annual security seminar convenes at a defining and consequential time in Jamaica's security journey. Over the past year, we achieved two outcomes that would once have been considered mutually exclusive: a historic reduction in violent crimes and a successful national response to a Category 5 hurricane, the third strongest hurricane ever recorded. These events do more than describe a challenging year. They confirm a strategic reality. Crime reduction, climate resilience, and border security are no longer separate policy domains. They are now inseparable pillars of Jamaica's national security architecture. In 2025, Jamaica recorded 673 murders, down from 1,147 in 2024. A 43% reduction. Over the last 2 years, our homicide rates have declined by more than 50%. This is the first time in 31 years that murders have fallen below 700. And that momentum has continued into 2026, with murders falling 55% in January 2026 compared to January 2025. These are not just statistics. These represent lives saved, communities stabilized, and futures reclaimed. These outcomes are not accidental. They are the result of deliberate, sustained institutional reform of Jamaica's security architecture, combined with disciplined operational execution. And over the last decade, we have increased capital investment in our security forces, strengthened intelligence fusion, expanded forensic capability, enhanced domain awareness and surveillance, and we have modernized command and control. We established a new operational capability within the Jamaica Defense Force. This includes maritime, air, and cyber command. We strengthened intelligence sharing networks, reinforced border and customs cooperation, and shifted decisively away from episodic emergency responses towards sustained intelligence-led joint operations. Central to this progress has been the all-out assault on gangs. And this we have put into a framework driven by coordinated multi-line of effort planning and targeting under the Joint Anti-Gang Task Force, supported by intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance capabilities. What does this demonstrate? It demonstrates that violence reduction and national security resilience are inseparable and mutually reinforcing. Intelligence-led operations degrade organized violence. Coordinated institutions strengthen state legitimacy, and sustained deployments create stability without reliance on permanent emergency measures. This is why national security resilience is now a central organizing principle of Jamaica's security strategy. But this work is not complete. We must recall that chronic violence in Jamaica has never been random. It has been organized, networked, and sustained by armed gangs operating in territorial clusters linked through illicit firearms trafficking, narcotics distribution, extortion networks, and overseas facilitators. These groups created micro environments of fear and economic distortions. They control public spaces and undermined state authority. The declining murder rate reflects the fact that we are systematically degrading the ecosystem of organized violence, disrupting leadership, constraining finance, and reducing territorial control. But resilience demands consolidation. Communities once controlled by gangs must become structurally and permanently inhospitable to their return. That means secure public spaces, reliable infrastructure, ordered community development, lawful economic opportunities, and consistent state presence. Where gangs once governed through fear, the state must now govern through presence, legitimacy, and the provision of opportunities. Security gains must be locked in by development, or they will be contested again. These gains we have made must therefore be secured, embedded, and made sustainable. The urgency of this consolidation is heightened by the lessons of Hurricane Melissa. In October 2025, Hurricane Melissa constituted a defining national security event. It claimed 45 lives and affected approximately 760,000 individuals across western parishes. The JDF deployed nearly 2,000 service members under Operation Olive Branch, distributing over 284,000 care packages through 8 logistics hubs and 23 humanitarian support areas. The response demonstrated real institutional strength, enhanced joint planning, effective civil-military coordination, and communications resilience. But it also exposed pressure points. Logistics chains were stretched. Fuel and maintenance capacity strained. Maritime and air assets diverted from border security to humanitarian relief. It said to Jamaica, that though we have tripled our national security budget, there are threats that we could face for which we don't have the assets or other capabilities to respond. We must continue to invest in our national security assets. In particular, local airlift was a challenge, and the government will make the necessary investment in both our local airlift and our maritime capabilities. These are critical to Jamaica's ability to respond to natural disasters, but they are also very effective assets in dealing with other kinds of kinetic security threats that we face. Now, Hurricane Melissa taught us an unavoidable lesson. Climate shocks are no longer episodic emergencies. They are now permanent features of our national security environment. After Melissa, there can be no return to a security model that treats climate risks as peripheral. Beyond the humanitarian dimension, disasters represent strategic shocks. They redirect resources, stress institutional capacity, disrupt national logistics, and create windows of opportunity for illicit traffic and irregular migration. But more than that, they present an opportunity for the discontinuity of government. They can be at the scale where the provision of services can be terminated or disrupted. Indeed, during Hurricane Melissa, local government services were disrupted, buildings totally destroyed, police stations totally destroyed. The good news and the good thing that Jamaica can be proud of is that there was no break in the provision of policing services. Indeed, my running joke with the Commissioner of Police is that he was seen with his machete clearing the Alan Bambo roadway. So our assets were definitely affected, but our human resources played their role. Our security forces played their role admirably. National security resilience, therefore, must be treated as a strategic imperative. Our security institutions must be able to anticipate, absorb, adapt, and recover from shocks, whether criminal, environmental, or geopolitical. Disaster risk management must be fully integrated into core security planning, budgeting, and capability development. Effective border security also plays a key role. Jamaica sits within one of the most trafficked maritime corridors in the hemisphere. Trafficking networks are adaptive and multimodal, exploiting containerized cargo, clandestine airstrips, unmanned aerial vehicles, and semi-submersible vessels are all part of the strategies used in the threats to our border security. Narcotic routes increasingly overlap with irregular migration networks. In 2025, authorities seized more than 33,000 kilograms of marijuana and over 1,360 kilograms of cocaine. The JDF Coast Guard intercepted approximately 990 pounds of cocaine valued at Jamaican $3.7 billion. That same year, Jamaica documented 124 known irregular migrant entries, primarily from Haiti and Cuba, each requiring humanitarian processing, legal compliance, and sustained resource allocation. For a small island developing state like Jamaica, sustained unmanaged inflows impose real economic, administrative, and social strain. Border security is therefore foundational to national security, economic security, disaster resilience, and crime reduction. We must invest in layered surveillance, coastal radar, aerial reconnaissance, and maritime patrols. We must strengthen forward operating presence, including facilities at Black River and the Pedro Keys. And we must integrate surveillance, customs, immigration, and interdiction data into a persistent common operating picture. Persistent domain awareness is resilience. At the same time, we operate within a challenging geopolitical environment. The recently promulgated United States National Security Strategy has recentered the Western Hemisphere, linking irregular migration and transnational organized crime directly to U.S. national security priorities. We see this as an opportunity to deepen regional cooperation and advance our shared goal of peace across the Caribbean. Jamaica welcomes structured cooperation. We will continue to strengthen intelligence sharing, maritime coordination, and joint enforcement. But cooperation must remain balanced and principled. It must respect sovereignty. It must align with Jamaica's national interests and regional leadership within CARICOM. Peace and national security resilience is a competitive advantage for Jamaica. It is important to situate Jamaica's progress in a wider hemispheric context. Sustained national security gains are uncommon across the region. Only a small number of countries have succeeded in achieving durable reductions in violence while strengthening institutions and preserving democratic governance. In that context, peace and security are not merely social goods. They are strategic economic assets. For decades, crime and violence acted as a drag on Jamaica's growth, deterring investments, driving talent away, and increasing the cost of doing business. Today, we are positioned not only to remove that drag, but to convert national security resilience into a resource, into a competitive advantage, one that attracts investment capital, retains and draws talent, and underpins long-term inclusive economic growth. In an uncertain world, countries that can offer stability, predictability, and institutional strength will command a premium. Jamaica intends to be one of them. Colleagues, the convergence of climate-related shocks, transnational crime, irregular migration, and geopolitical competition defines the security environment of our time. These forces will not recede. They will test us again. and they will test us even harder. But Jamaica does not confront this moment from a position of fragility. We confront it with measurable progress. We confront it having reduced murders by more than 50% over 2 years. We confront it having protected our country through a Category 5 hurricane while maintaining internal security. There was never a break in our security environment. And we confront it with institutions that are stronger, more integrated, and more capable than ever. Resilience, however, is not a temporary achievement. Resilience must be permanent. That is why we must now move decisively from recovery to consolidation, from tactical success to institutional endurance, from gains achieved to gains secured. We must embed crime reduction with resilient institutions that can withstand shocks. We must protect reconstruction from criminal disruptions. We must harden our borders against illicit international networks, and we must ensure that every reclaimed community remains permanently inhospitable to organized violence and permanently open to lawful opportunities. Peace, therefore, is not a pause between crises. Peace is not the quietening of guns alone. Peace is the deliberate construction of order, opportunity, and trust, built through strong institutions, secure borders, reliable infrastructure, and sustained political will. National security resilience is not an abstract concept. It is the bridge between violence reduction and long-term development. It is how Jamaica protects what it has achieved and how it advances what it aspires to become. The work continues, and Jamaica will not drift through this moment. We will shape our security outcomes. We will defend our sovereignty. We will turn national security resilience into a competitive advantage, attracting investment, talent, and opportunity in an uncertain world. And we will build a safer, stronger, and more resilient Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and retire in peaceful paradise for generations to come. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Give the Prime Minister another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, many takeaways. I won't seek to reiterate, but just allow me to summarize. National security and resilience are inextricably linked. Major takeaway. So, crime reduction, climate resilience, and border security. Those three major pillars are inseparable. That's a major takeaway, ladies and gentlemen. The results that we have seen, not by chance, it's deliberate efforts, strategic alliances, visionary leadership. For example, increasing allocation to security. When years ago, there was a paucity of allocation resources to national security efforts. Intelligence-led operations jointly is also pivotal. Those efforts will continue. Coordinated operations. The decline in murder rate that we have seen has somewhat, over the years, would have eroded confidence in the system. What we are seeing now is an augmentation of that confidence. And the extent of organized crime have degraded our ecosystem. Resilience, ladies and gentlemen, also requires consolidation. Myriad partnerships must be forged, and also that the budget has been tripled. Major, major. Yes, you can clap. Resilience must be permanent. It's not a temporary endeavor. Many takeaways. I have many others, but just summarizing. Put your hands together again to the Prime Minister for the Prime Minister's presentation. Thank you. Leading from the front. Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the first working session. And we are ahead of schedule, I'm happy to report. We are supposed to commence at 11:15 with this presentation, and we are not yet at 11:15. So, for this presentation, that will be delivered by Mr. Cosmin Dobran, Director, Peace, Partnerships and Crisis Management Directorate, European External Action Services, European Union in Belgium. I'm going to just share with you briefly his bio. Mr. Dobran is a manager at the European External Action Service with an extensive experience in European affairs, both at the national and the European level. On February 1, 2023, he took up the position of Director for Peace, Partnerships and Crisis Management. A former Romanian diplomat with postings in Washington, D.C. and Brussels, he has an established track record in foreign and security policy and has represented Romania and the European Commission in the EU Political and Security Committee. He has worked on a variety of external action areas, including development, trade and economic governance, but also European internal policies at the General Secretariat of the European Commission, such as agriculture, energy, transport, environment, health, employment, education, and youth. He has studied at the Academy of Economic Studies in Bucharest and the School of Advanced International Studies in Washington, D.C. The title of his presentation is Security, Preparedness, and EU Partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, please make Mr. Cosmin Dobran welcome. You could turn your eyes to the screen. Thanks.
But this vision is under threat, and in a world of big power games, we need to support each other. But beyond values, this partnership is increasingly driven by shared interest, particularly when it comes to addressing global security threats. We share concrete interests from combating organized crime and cyber threats to strengthening maritime security, improving disaster preparedness, and promoting peacekeeping. In recent years, we have made significant progress in transforming this partnership into something more operational, more structured, and more forward-looking. In 2024, the first bi-regional edition of the European Union, Latin America, and the Caribbean Security and Defense Seminar took place in Cartagena de Indias, in Colombia. The event brought together more than 80 participants from 35 countries, including Jamaica. We have expanded our security and defense dialogues in the region. We have a regular dialogue format with Colombia, and last year we launched new dialogues with Brazil, with Chile, and Peru. And these exchanges allow us to align strategically, to identify areas for operational cooperation, and to work together in addressing shared peace and security concerns. We very much welcome Latin American contributions to EU CSDP missions and operations, from Chile's participation in EUFOR Althea in Bosnia and Herzegovina to Colombia's participation in Operation Atalanta. And these are not only symbolic gestures, they are concrete expressions of our shared commitment to international peace and security. But beyond traditional crisis management, our cooperation is expanding into new strategic domains. And let me highlight a few of them. One of the fastest growing areas of cooperation is cybersecurity. The Cyber Competence Center for Latin America and the Caribbean, based in the Dominican Republic and supported by the EU, is becoming a regional hub for cyber capacity building. The center has already delivered training in countries across the region, including cyber diplomacy courses for regional diplomats. The EU LSE Digital Alliance also provides a strong framework to advance our cooperation on digital and cyber issues. We are also aligning our efforts through the EU's updated cyber diplomacy toolbox and our cyber defense policy, which aims to promote a whole of society response to cyber threats. Second example, maritime security. This is another fast evolving field in our cooperation, and the EU is one of the world's leading contributors to maritime security, and our engagement in the South Atlantic and the South Pacific is growing. One of our flagship initiatives in this region is CRIMARIO, which supports maritime security and sustainable fisheries in the Indo-Pacific. At the core of CRIMARIO is EURIS, which is a secure neutral platform for maritime coordination, which is now used by over 200 agencies from more than 50 countries, including navies, coast guards, and customs authorities. Several Latin American countries are now actively cooperating on EURIS, and we see real potential to scale up engagement across the region. The EU's maritime security strategy, which was adopted in 2023, reaffirmed our commitment to supporting partners in tackling illegal fishing, environmental risks, and maritime infrastructure threats. Third example, transnational organized crime. Let me also say a word on organized crime, an issue that affects us both deeply. In the LAC and in Europe, criminal networks are blurring the lines between criminality and political violence, penetrating state structures, fueling corruption, and exploiting economic and security vulnerabilities. The scale and sophistication of these networks, from illicit trafficking to money laundering and cybercrime, demand a coordinated, multifaceted response. And the EU is ready to work more closely with LAC countries to address these threats through enhanced cooperation, operational cooperation, joint investigations, but also capacity building, because ultimately it takes a network to dismantle a network. At the 4th CELAC EU Summit in Santa Marta in Colombia in November 2025, citizen security emerged as a central priority. We also took good note that in the Caribbean Leaders Meeting, which was organized back-to-back with the summit, almost all delegations highlighted security in the region as their key concern. And to address these concerns, we have launched the EU-LAC Alliance for Citizen Security at the summit. This alliance can serve as a useful tool also in our daily efforts, facilitating interagency and cross-border collaboration, essential for implementing the comprehensive approach in the fight against crime that we all believe in. Let me conclude by returning to the broader geopolitical picture. The erosion of the rules-based international order affects us all. For small and medium-sized states, especially, international law means protection. And the European Union remains deeply committed to multilateralism and to the United Nations. We work closely with the UN on peacekeeping, peace building, mediation, and conflict prevention. Let me conclude by recalling that in today's world, no single country is capable of responding to the emerging challenges in isolation. Together, the EU and Latin America can make a significant impact on global security as we share a vision of a world based on multilateralism, international law, human rights, and peaceful conflict resolution. And obviously, I'll be more than happy to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, unfortunately, the Prime Minister has to depart. I would like to, on behalf of you all, extend profound thanks to the Prime Minister for joining us. No! Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, give the Prime Minister a hearty round of applause, please. We thank you, PM. Thank you so much.